Hello, everyone, and welcome to my capstone, Heal Yourself First, a self-care seminar for third-year MSW students. Right off the bat, one thing that I want to address is that I specifically elected to focus this on third-year MSW students, mainly because obviously it's personally relevant to me as a third-year MSW student, and so I have that context. But secondly, and most importantly, that third year is really where this intervention is most needed and most applicable, because third year is where stuff really hits the fan. People are still working the same amount, but school responsibilities have increased, and then practicum hours have increased as well as become more professionally and academically challenging. So it's really in the third year that students are most at risk of becoming burned out and really need that extra support. And I developed my needs statement based on both research and a focus group that I completed with third year MSW students who really did endorse feeling burnt out, endorsed feeling like the program is not reaching out to them, is not going the extra mile to be helpful with everything that's going on with the pandemic, and specifically saying things like, we don't have the energy to advocate for ourselves. We feel like we've just been left to figure out our own S. Um, Online school feels like more work than in-person school because people are compensating and giving us more to do. So from all of this input, I generated the needs statement. In order to graduate without burning out, MSW students need a supportive peer group, opportunities for self-advocacy during school and practicum, and education within the MSW program on burnout and self-care strategies. And then based on the focus group as well, we really wanted to design something that was peer-led and peer-driven. So the ultimate intervention that I developed was a structured, student-facilitated 10-session, in keeping with the quarter system, support group that covers such topics as self-care, burnout, compassion satisfaction, which is kind of the opposite and the antithesis to burnout, and self-advocacy. So in keeping with that, my first outcome is that students will increase their knowledge of burnout and self-care strategies. And this is where the kind of nuts and bolts of the courses come in. And we'd have classes on physical, psychological, social, leisure, as in just things that you do to relax or hang out, and then spiritual self-care. We'd have separate class sections and discussions around those, and actually give students the opportunity to talk to each other in a meaningful way about how they use these self-care strategies and can incorporate them into their everyday life. So I went over the first indicator with that, but the second indicator, based on the education we'd be doing around burnout, is that students can identify and address their own individual risk factors for burnout, because each person has their own specific things that cause additional stress in the workplace. One student shared that they already feel burnt out being Black, which is understandable. Another student shared that they experience a lot of sexism in the workplace. So everybody kind of has their own things that affect them and can contribute to an already stressful work environment. So for outcome 2, students will increase their perception of their ability to prevent burnout and their ability to have agency within their practice environment. So we're not just stuck in this idea that the workplace is toxic and stressful and nothing can change it, but that we actually feel confident that we can advocate for change. And in keeping with that, students can identify at least one self-care strategy that they have adapted into their everyday life. And with that, obviously, the goal is that this is not something that they're just doing to check a box and say, I participated in this class, but it's really something that they can keep with them and kind of tweak as needed forever. And then as far as the workplace advocacy goes, based on kind of some of the brainstorming sessions that we'll do in group and just case examples, students will learn how to voice solutions to challenging work environments and advocate for these changes to those in positions of power, because that can really help with professional longevity and feeling a sense of self-efficacy that you actually feel like you can change aspects of your work environment, or at least, affect your own ability to deal with the aspects of work that are stressful. In terms of how we'll evaluate, mixing quantitative and qualitative methods. For the first outcome, measuring knowledge, we'll administer the professional quality of life survey at the first group, just to kind of get a baseline for where everybody's at with regards for compassion satisfaction, burnout, etc. We want to see these scores decrease after the intervention for burnout. We want to see them increase for compassion satisfaction, because people have hopefully learned how to pay attention more to the aspects of their work that do provide compassion satisfaction. And with burnout decreasing, they're implementing those strategies to decrease burnout. Outcome 2, obviously, because it's pretty abstract, right? How do you measure somebody increasing their perception? We're going to do a focus group for that. And I have questions related to, what was it like being in this group? What would you change about it? Do you feel like you're going to practically take these skills elsewhere into your practice setting? So focus group would measure that second outcome, and then also really give the facilitators, of which there's 2 student facilitators, feedback to tweak the intervention going forward. So this is all definitely very in keeping with the research that I found. One quotation that's really critical for all of us to pay attention to, especially because this was before the pandemic and everything that's been going on this year. In 2013, Miller and Lee found that MSW students were most likely to leave the profession within 4 years after graduating, which is pretty insane when you consider our program takes 3 years. So with that piece, while social workers are trained to advocate for their clients in practice, it does not appear that they're doing so for themselves in professional settings. And then with the professional burnout inventory, which is an instrument to measure burnout, 2 researchers found that support provided within the school context, more so than at home, right? Which makes sense because people at home do not know what we're experiencing at school. This was more of a buffer against students wanting to drop out of the program. So support from school is really something that helps. And again, this is very important because it's something in the focus group that students really said they're lacking. My theoretical orientation to develop this group is the self-care framework as defined by Miller and Lee, which really identifies 5 primary structures of support for personal self-care. So physical, psychological, emotional, social, leisure, and spiritual. And just to go into a little bit more what class sessions would look like, obviously we're going to cover each of these topics. I have a guest speaker who's coming to talk about how trauma impacts the body and how to do breathing exercises and stretching, things like that, to stay in touch with your body and pay attention to how your body's handling stress. We'll have time devoted at the beginning of each session or the end, depending on what students want to do, to just vent and talk about what's going on, because that's one thing that's people have said has been really missing from our online environment. And then we'll ultimately be developing self-care plans that people can take with them. So that's all based on the self-care framework, and lots of amazing resources and templates online that I found that already exist to help somebody plan for self-care and keep doing it. So our ultimate goal is that all social work students will receive ongoing and consistent education on burnout and self-care as part of their program, and will thus avoid burnout as professional social workers. So this project is very important to me because I really feel like I can rely on all of my classmates to come up with just amazing, life-changing interventions that are going to help all of our clients, right? But we're also selfless, that we don't necessarily think about who's helping us, who's going to help us, who's going to take care of us. So I really wanted to do something by and for MSW students. And to that, I just want to say I'm very thankful to my community mentor, Erica Crittenden, and all of the folks who participated in my focus group and have helped me brainstorm this. Thank you, everybody. I really hope that you're all safe and well and that things keep looking up for all of us. Thank you so much.